Breaking news tonight, the deadliest day yet of the coronavirus outbreak in the U.S. Over 200 dead in 24 hours. New York City, now the nation's epicenter. Long lines at hospitals, makeshift morgues being arranged. U.S. cases surging to over 60,000. The new hotspots cropping up. Deaths rising in New Orleans. Is Mardi Gras to blame? While Florida and other states won't issue stay-at-home orders.
All right, today is Thursday, March 26, 2020. Current number of cases around the world, 524,000. Deaths at 23,673. We're definitely moving at an exponential rate. Things are getting particularly bad in New York right now. So it looks like New York's total deaths, 385 total deaths.
Go back to all the countries. We have now jumped into the second spot. We have overtaken Italy in the number of cases.
We have 80,800. Italy has 80,500. And China, where this all started, only has 81,200 cases.
So we will be number one by the time this video is released. Like in a few hours. Like we're releasing these late at night. They're coming out like around midnight or so.
Yeah, and if the numbers that we're saying are ever a little different than the numbers that we're showing, it's because we're filming this around 5 p.m. Maybe we'll start editing around 7 or 8 p.m. Or we'll
screen capture late and everything. So the numbers could be off a little bit, but it looks like the United States is going to beat China. We'll get to that here in a minute. But the other thing I wanted to say is if you do the now and yesterday and look back, it looks like Italy yesterday had 683 new deaths. And today, Italy already has 712. And there's a lot of other things we could compare. We could say number of new cases. Italy has 6,000 today, where yesterday Italy had 5,000. 5,200 versus 6,200. So once again, just when we thought Italy was planing out, and maybe statistically it still is, they're still recording larger numbers than the prior day. So that doesn't look good. The other thing that seems to be coming out is if you take all of these numbers and add them up, it seems like the death rate is going up. It's like a 4.5% mortality rate, I believe, right now. Which is pretty scary because we always thought that would keep decreasing.
Yeah.
People have said, oh, it's got like a 1% mortality rate, but we're starting to see like 4.5. And I guess it all kind of hinges on China and China's numbers because China can't possibly only have 81,000 cases. That seems ridiculous, right?
It does, and China's claiming they only had 6 deaths yesterday. I just don't understand how that's possible. There's a lot of speculation if they're lying about their numbers. But, you know, they've remained pretty consistent over the last few weeks, so who the heck knows?
So I don't know how to properly do this. I always want to give everyone the honest truth of what I'm doing and reading, but last night
Sounds like a conspiracy theory.
It's not a conspiracy theory, but the other night, and especially last night, I found a link, which I guess we'll put in the description. It's definitely not safe for work, but it's videos that have kind of been leaked out of China and out of Iran. There's some from Spain, and the idea is that like China controls their press, right? And very few people are allowed to sneak media out. They control everything. And so this link has a lot of videos, and these videos are crazy, right? It's just showing like in Iran and China, it's showing bodies everywhere. And then you go to Italy and you see all the caskets. I don't think Italy controls their media the same way China does. But when you look at China, I mean, they're fumigating the streets, you know, like massive amounts of just spraying everything. And you can watch these videos, and some of them are gruesome and they show deaths, but others just show them like running through apartment buildings, just spraying down everything with people, I assume, in them. And so when I see that kind of reaction, again, Wuhan is larger than New York City. I can't help but think that the numbers have to be 10, 20 times, 100 times larger than what they're reporting. And there's also people speculating, and this, I don't want to say is a conspiracy theory, but people have been calling to attention that China is a surveillance state. They watch their citizens more than any other place in the world. In many ways that they do it are through cameras and stuff, but they also do it through people's cell phones. And there have been reports that China has had 20 million cell phones deactivated in the last month. Now, some people would just say, oh, if you've lost your job and you have no money, maybe you go without your cell phone. I would think that's one of the last things that I'm cutting out. You know, I might not want the newest and greatest cell phone, but I'm still going to want to be connected to the internet in some way.
Yeah.
Other people are saying maybe that is actually more of a realistic number on the number of people that have died. And even if you went somewhere in between and say, let's just say 50% of those people died and the other 50% got rid of their cell phone service, that still could potentially be 10 million deaths. Even if it's 1 million deaths, that's way higher than the number they're reporting. I mean, what is the number right now?
Wait, are you suggesting that the cell phones were turned off when they died, or the cell phones were turned off because they were doing something the government didn't like?
The idea would be that China is monitoring all the people and figuring out where they are at all times. And so if 20 million cell phone services went quiet, that would be a death of a person. That's what people are saying online. They're saying that, like, China would probably always keep that cell phone service going so they can monitor all those people. But at the moment, China has 3,200 deaths. But people are saying, like, with the cell phone conspiracy, could they have millions of deaths? And, like, that number's not even in here. I mean, some of these videos I'm seeing, it seems like they're throwing bodies outside the hospitals, maybe so they don't get counted. And you're watching family members run into these hospitals and getting in fistfights and stuff.
I haven't seen any of this.
It's crazy. You have to dig deep to find this stuff, but, like, weird stuff's going on in China. I thought weird stuff was happening 2 or 3 months ago when I first heard about coronavirus. You'd see these checkpoints, and you'd see, again, the fumigation of all the streets, and you're like, New York City hasn't even begun to do that.
Yeah.
So how bad is it? Or are all these videos totally fake, and it's like somehow somebody's, like, spraying down a city and filming it, and I don't know why you would do that, but I have to believe these are real videos.
Yeah, I mean, the spraying videos, I don't...
You've seen some of those,
I've seen the spraying videos, yeah.
You've seen the videos where they're driving down the street and there's just bodies outside everyone's door and they
I have not seen
pick
that.
them up?
No, I've not seen that.
This got brought up to my home chat with my sister and my mom, and it came to my attention, I didn't know this, that during, I guess, I don't know if they said it was the Spanish flu. Maybe there was another flu or something that happened around there, if it was measles or something. There's a big measles outbreak around the Great Depression, but my great-grandmother died, and my grandfather had to dispose of her body in the same way. Put her in a bag outside the house. They all picked up the bodies. No proper funeral. I was like, I had no idea.
When was this?
My great-grandparents, so like in the 20s,
Okay.
20s or 30s, somewhere around there.
Yeah, you know, you always hear stories like that about the past and 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Look how people had to live. Look how crazy it was. Hopefully we don't get to that point, but never in a million years would I think we'd be where we are right now. Something that I saw today, I think on the New York Times, a nurse or somebody who works for a hospital kind of came out to the press, and she seemed to sneak video footage inside the hospital, which I assume is against the law.
In this room, all the feet that you see, they all have COVID. The frustrating thing about all of this is it really just feels like it's too little too late. Like we knew it was coming.
In the U.S. or from another country?
In the U.S., in New York City.
Yeah.
And she went outside and took footage of people waiting in line to get in.
Yeah.
The lines are huge. People have masks on and everything, and they're just waiting to be tested. And then inside, you see all the people, with the bubble head things on, and she was just saying how they do not have enough equipment.
Yeah.
At first, we were trying to isolate patients with cough and fever and be more careful around them, but we weren't necessarily being extra careful around all the other patients. And then we started to realize that patients who were coming in with no fever but abdominal pain actually had findings on their x-rays and chest CTs that were consistent with this coronavirus, COVID-19. So if someone in a car accident gets brought in, and we get a CT scan of them, and their lungs look like they have coronavirus.
But then you hear a lot of the politicians speak. Even Cuomo today was saying that for the time being, they do have enough equipment.
Is he still speaking in front of the stockpile behind him?
I think he is. Which
would make you think there's enough. Or it's like a horrible PR move to have all that material behind him.
Yeah. I mean, he was saying that they had enough for the next 5 days or something like that. But then this girl was saying, we don't have enough.
I don't really care if I get in trouble for speaking to the media. I want people to know that this is bad. People are dying. We don't have the tools that we need in the emergency department and in the hospital to take care of them. And it's really hard.
And I just got off with the phone with a mutual friend whose image you sent me earlier today. He is a nurse anesthetist in Washington, D.C., and I was asking him just about how his job has changed.
Yeah.
And he says usually his job is to put people under who are about to go into elective surgery and then emergency surgery. And he was like, all elective surgery has stopped. The majority of his job now is putting people under who have COVID-19 for them to put trach tubes in.
No, you have to actually be under for that, huh? Or
Apparently.
it's easier, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, it's easier. I mean, I would imagine it'd be horrifying to have something breathing for you and jam down your throat if you're awake. So he says it's his job to put people to sleep. Then the nurses can keep them asleep. He doesn't actually have to be there like he would during a surgery.
Procedure, right.
But right now he said they have plenty of equipment, but they are constantly planning for a massive influx. But he said they're already starting to see lots of cases.
Yeah, I know masks and everything, those have been hard to get. My dad was talking to me the other day. I think he might be sending us some masks from his dental practice. I don't know that you have any desire to wear masks at all.
I don't, but I might be forced to soon by you and Katie.
I feel like when I go to the grocery store, which I've yet to do, like I'm going to start wearing masks. And this is another big divide that I see around the world, is the CDC came out and told Americans weeks ago that masks do not help you whatsoever. It only helps the spread of the virus if you have it. Yet some of the countries that have decreased the curve the most, China and Asia, they're wearing masks exclusively. Every single person has a mask. And a lot of their argument is you don't know that you have it. The incubation period of this can be like 2 to 14 days.
Right.
So if you don't think you have it but you're contagious, a mask would definitely help the spread. But that's not what our politicians said, and that's definitely not what our health officials have said. And so at some point, somebody's going to have to be accountable, you would hope. Like there'll be some huge investigation of this whole thing in the next year once we get over this. But I was talking to my dad, and he was saying, I wonder why we can't just reuse the masks. Like some of these masks aren't fit perfectly to your face. There's no time for that. I think the N95 masks, you actually like have a meeting before and they sculpt them to your face and stuff, but like that's not realistic at this point now.
I think that's necessary if you're going to be working with
people
who
have it. It is. I think like what you saw, the picture I sent you, they're like in full like domes. Like it's completely covering their head. But he was just wondering like why can't we do like 1 part Clorox to 4 parts water and just dip our masks and reuse them? Let them dry.
For everyday people, not medical
No,
staff.
for medical too.
I think that is what they're doing.
I mean, didn't Trump come out the other day and say, like, we're going to recommend, like, using rags or something? Bandanas over our face?
I mean, again, I think that's better than nothing, but we don't want to see our healthcare providers with bandanas on their faces.
No, but if we're totally running out of all of these supplies.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
I guess the idea is, like, how much can you wipe down? Like, the full body suits, I assume they're wiping all those down and reusing them. I've heard you wipe down twice. You do one here, you move to another room, you wipe down, and then maybe those are reusable. But I don't know. It'll just be something that we'll find out down the road how important is the reusability of some of these tools, you know. Because really you're trying to protect the healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Because the outside of it, it's like, you know, everybody else is already exposed to the virus that's being treated. So I don't know. It's pretty scary to think like where everything is. And I don't know that anybody's ready for this. They're trying to politicize it and say, like, there's been certain measures by different politicians, either it be Obama or Trump, that have, like, put us in a worse position. But when you look around the world, nobody's healthcare is prepared for this at all, you know?
Except for somehow South Korea. They seem to have things.
South Korea has it
Singapore,
together.
they have it together.
Have you seen this video? It's called My Secret Terrius. Have you seen this? This was sent to me last night, and then I found that a lot of people have been sharing it. Basically, it is like a Korean soap opera on Netflix from 2 years ago.
Okay.
And if you go to like episode 10, 50 minutes in, they have this crazy scenario where they're like, there's been a biologic coronavirus that incubates 2 days to 14 days, and it is killing people all over the world. Like, they spell out exactly what we're dealing with.
좀 더 조사를 해봐야겠지만 변종된 코로나 바이러스입니다.
코로나면 혹시 메르스?
메르스, 사스, 감기 모두 동일한 바이러스의 유전 정보를 지닌 패밀리로 보면 돼요. 코로나는 호흡기 질환을 일으키는 대표적인 바이러스고.
But the thing is, I've read more of the conspiracy theories today, and it seems like SARS, and was it H1N1, and there's another one, MERS. All of these were coronaviruses that have these things.
Much higher death rates too. I mean, I think MERS was like 30%. That was the one in the Middle East that you got from like the bat bit the camel and then it transferred over.
These damn bats, man.
It's the bats. I learned from a video last night that bats are the only mammals to fly, and bats make up like 25% of the diversity within mammals. So that's the reason that it always comes from bats, is because, well, that's the theory.
What do you mean they make up the diversity?
If you look at every species of mammal,
Yeah.
and you like laid them all out, 25% of them apparently are like different species of bat.
Really?
They're super communal. I mean, you see bats in the caves here in Puerto Rico, and it's like a blanket.
Yeah. They are not practicing social distancing.
They do not practice social distancing, which is why there's so many opportunities for the virus to mutate. And in this video, they were also saying that because they're the only mammal to fly, and flying is so taxing on the body, that the one theory is that bats have somehow learned to make their immune system weaker. Because the theory is that viruses get into your body, and it's the people who actually may have stronger immune systems. They attack this virus but do not succeed at beating it. And so all of a sudden you have these massive repercussions from trying to do this battle that your body never wins. And does that mean that someone with a weaker immune system? I don't know. Like, there's debates here.
What are you saying? That the bats allow the virus to infiltrate their body?
It sits kind of dormant. Like, it's not creating the same. It's kind of like if the bat, this guy explaining it, I'll have to find the video so that we can put it in the link. It's an interesting video. But the idea is that if the bat's immune system was as strong as other mammals, it would kind of be fighting this all the time, and it would almost be like an autoimmune disease. Some people claim that if your defense system is too strong, you actually attack your body all the time. Some people think that's what Crohn's disease is your body is attacking itself. There's some debate one way or another. But anyway, whole tangent on bats, but I thought it was pretty interesting. Continue on. You were saying just about the video where, there's this plot line.
Earlier, or maybe at the end of 2019, there was some video that came out where these organizations were preparing for a pandemic. It's called something 201 or something. I don't know. But these stupid conspiracy people point to that and go, aha, they've been planning this all along. Like, if you were planning to infect the entire world, the month before you unleashed it, you would make a free YouTube video and share it with the world to show them what you're about to do. And by the way, you're also infecting the entire world, which you happen to live in.
Right.
And your family and friends happen to live in as well. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
And I've got these friends on Facebook that are, every day they change their conspiracy theory a little bit. It's like before it wasn't even real, and we're being lied to because the government, is trying to lie to us. Then it's real, but Bill Gates is doing it because he wants to vaccinate the entire world and then control us with 5G, the new cell phone language.
Right.
And then that's changed now, and it's like, no, it's the elite and the Illuminati. What they're trying to do is transfer wealth to their coffers and everything. It's like, what are you saying?
Right.
There's much easier ways to get rich than infect the world that you live in. Maybe they believe that they have the antidote for themselves and they've given it to their friends.
Well,
and
that's
family.
what this cartoon said, or it's not a cartoon, it's a show, but they're like, this one company has the antidote, and like, but there's probably, I think there's a phrase for this whole way of thinking. And do you remember the 9/11 stuff? It was like there was a rap record that came out like a month or a year before 9/11 and had the World Trade Towers on fire.
Okay.
And then there was also like a children's storybook that has like a plane attack, like going in. So like, it's just kind of coincidence. And I think the reasonable way to look at it would be, Korea and Asia deal with SARS viruses much more than we do.
Right.
This is the first one that's
It's a
become
very
a pandemic.
common situation for
And
them.
so that storyline actually is pretty plausible.
And you know, Bill Gates, I think 4 years ago, did a TED Talk where he was warning us that we're not prepared for a worldwide pandemic and it could kill millions of people and blah, blah, blah. And people are pointing to that saying, aha, he's been planning to unleash this on us all along, instead of saying, you know what, maybe Bill Gates is a smart guy. Maybe he's been looking at how to save the lives of as many people as possible, like that's what he's dedicating his life to, and he was right.
Yeah.
And he happened to be 4 years early. Isn't that the reasonable thing?
It definitely seems that way. Not to revisit the theory I threw out early in the series about it being a manufactured virus. We don't know that, right?
It might be.
Scientists are saying that it's not. You could also make the argument that that's what they would say if it was a biological weapon, because the world would freak out if they knew. We'd probably all instantly go to war with China, right?
Maybe.
But there are studies. You can look at NIH, you can go to PubMed. Like, there are studies from 2015 where in Wuhan and different parts of the world, not just that factory, but they have been playing with the genetic code in these viruses.
I'm sure.
We know that.
Yeah. And I'm not saying, speculating that this might be man-made, I don't think that's so bad.
Yeah.
But when you take it one step or 100 steps
it's the
further,
lizard people, and it's, you know, craziness that Bill Gates is behind stuff
exactly, and I can't even get into it anymore. Let's talk a little bit more about what we've seen today. The unemployment numbers came out.
Where the Senate unanimously passed the largest economic rescue package in American history. Just hours before, we're expected to see the largest rise in weekly unemployment claims in American history. Economists expect that number to reach the millions for the first time ever.
These numbers are huge. What did they say? 3.3 million people sign up for unemployment. I don't really know what this means in the grand scheme of things, but it was a record number, it's the highest of all time or something like that.
I think I should have it in my notes, but I think the 2008 crisis, when that first started, maybe the first quarter or the highest quarter that it was reported.
Yeah.
600,000 maybe.
Okay.
So we have blown that out of the water.
Okay. Well, I feel like the majority of people still feel like they are employed, even if they're not currently working.
Yeah.
And
they haven't made moves to make their claims yet.
Absolutely. I mean, we have friends who just today, seconds before starting recording, he and his wife were laid off today.
Yeah.
I spoke with my brother-in-law and my sister-in-law today, and although he is the manager in this physical therapy organization, and he feel like he's still working because he's considered essential because it's physical therapy, which doesn't really make sense, but anyway. He feels like his job is relatively safe. He said he's going to have to start laying people off or limiting hours because people aren't coming in to have the physical therapy anymore. My sister-in-law, who's a dentist or a dental an assistant, people were coming in less and less, and she said she did not feel comfortable continuing to work after the dental organizations said that they recommend you only do dentistry for emergencies.
Yep.
So she hasn't worked in weeks, and I think a lot of these people feel like they have jobs, and the second this blows over in a week or two, they're just going to go back to their jobs. But if those jobs don't open back up again,
only then will they be unemployed.
Exactly. And, I mean, you know the way the internet works, and you know the way YouTube works and everything.
Tell me.
I have been expecting there to be an influx of videos of, like, how to sign up for unemployment and get free money.
Yeah.
And I have seen one video so far about that. And even he didn't really have the answers.
Well,
So-
what do you mean? Like, this bill is so new that I would assume most people have no idea how to get this money yet.
Wait till Americans figure out that if you just go to this website and put your address in, checks will start being mailed to your house. What percentage of people are going to be unemployed the day that becomes available? Now,
well, I have heard, step back a little bit, I thought that the unemployment numbers were extremely low.
that's what I'm saying.
If we have 330 million people in America, and I don't know what percentage of all those people are working, we've had historically low unemployment rates, which would make you think that it should be all those people, but it's probably not. Maybe it's like 250 million, 300 million people.
Well, I mean, there has to be people who are too young to work and too old to work.
But when I think about, like, even if it's 150 million people are our workforce, we're less than, it's like 1% of everybody. It just seems like it should be, I think the other day we were joking, not joking, but you mentioned that like it could be 70% of people that are unemployed.
Eventually.
And I thought like, well, the first report will be a lot of people. And so I think you're right. Most people don't know that they're unemployed, or they haven't known how to file for unemployment, or they're still thinking that their boss is somehow going to give them this money. And I've also heard, what I was going to lead into was that a lot of people are calling the hotlines, and I'm hearing that you cannot get through to the unemployment office at all. And imagine if you're in a quarantine town, you're definitely not going to the physical unemployment office, you know? So you're going to have to call. So I think these numbers are extremely skewed, and I think they're very underreported. They're historically high numbers, but when you shut the whole country down, what do you expect?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like that is like a little bit of good news, because I don't know when the next numbers come out. Do these come out like weekly or monthly or quarterly?
I don't know.
I can't imagine the next one's going to have to be horrific.
I would think so. I was speaking with a business owner today, and he was telling me about how he feels horrible, but he's going to have to start letting go all of his employees. But he was mentioning that with one of the unemployment bills plus the stimulus package and everything, he was like, there's a chance that some of my employees could make more from going on unemployment and the stimulus money than what they make working for me full time. Mm-hmm. So it would be in their interest to be fired.
This was a debate I think Ted Cruz or some people were making, that, you know, you could actually make more money. Do you know how that works? Because I think you have to have a tax return. And they were saying it could be this year's or it could be last year's. But you're going to want to use the one that's like higher income, right? So if you made less money in 2019, which would be this year's tax return, and you haven't filed it yet, and you made less, you would just naturally pick the 2018 tax return to submit.
I don't know how
there's a game
that works.
that will be played there, but I thought you had to have like a tax return, which would eliminate anyone who doesn't actually have a job. So if you're not working or you aren't here legally and you don't do an IRS, return, then you would be excluded from being able to participate. But you're saying maybe it's not calculated on that?
He was saying that he believed, and he didn't have a full understanding of it either, but he thought you could get unemployment plus stimulus money for a spouse and children. So he's like, when you start adding up all this money, for if you're in the right demographic and you had a job.
I've heard people in my investing group saying like they have 4 or 5 kids, and that's $500 a kid.
Those making $75,000 or less will receive $1,200. Married couples who make up to $150,000 getting $2,400 and $500 for each child. Those checks heading out as early as April 6th. If you filed your taxes electronically, the stimulus payout will likely get to you faster via direct deposit.
Expanded unemployment benefits. The average worker who has lost his or her job will receive 100% of their salary for up to 4 full months.
And then you have my sister who had her, my niece was born on New Year's Day. I don't know how they account for people that were born in 2020. Because that baby doesn't get counted because she didn't exist on the tax return the last 2 years that she could use.
That's true.
It's like, what does my sister do when she probably needs, I don't want to say she needs the money more than anybody else, but like I just see what a newborn requires. And it feels like a newborn requires more than like a 16-year-old. Maybe I'm going to be really disappointed when I have a 16-year-old and I'm like, oh boy. I don't know how that's all going to pan out. I was trying to make sense of Canada's numbers, just dividing the population into the total stimulus bill, and it looked like Canadians were going to get a whole lot more money than what Americans were going to get.
Really?
That's what it appeared. I didn't dive deep enough to know for certain like where money's going, but the stimulus bill, this is all one bill that's been passed. Some of this money is going towards bailing out the airline industry and stuff, right? Is that part of it?
I'm not sure. I did listen to Cuomo talking this morning live, and he was complaining and saying that this was not nearly enough money to cover New York City's deficit from lack of tax revenue since everything's been shut down for a week or two, which is so crazy. I mean, people are seeing these $2 trillion numbers come out and going, are you crazy? We can't spend that much money. And the day it's passed, Cuomo is angry that he's not getting enough to continue paying for his city.
Well, this brings up the concern that I have, because I keep feeling like this is going to get worse. And I've been saying all week, like, I have a position that's shorting the market, right? I have a lot of positions that I'm trying to hope the market goes up. But I've been saying this is going to be a really bad week, and that this bill is the last bit of good news. But the more I listen to other economists, they're like, what keeps the Fed from doing Q4, Q5? Like, why can't we have another stimulus bill? And I think Congress is already talking about, that might have been one of the negotiating tactics, was you guys are trying to put all this stuff into one bill, but like, let's just get this passed for the relief of Americans, and we can then do more on the future bills. You know, I think that's already being hinted at.
Yeah, one of the guys with the Federal Reserve came out and said they will not run out of ammunition. They have unlimited ammunition.
Yeah, it's like, what are we doing? What happens when the printer breaks? You know, and you run out of ink to do all of this stuff. It's, I don't know, but the market, it ended up pretty high. What did we end up today? Like 4%, 5%?
Up 6.24%
Oh my gosh.
today.
That's good in some ways, but like, it's bad in other ways.
It's just when you look back at this amount of growth per day, it only happens during or right before crashes.
Crazy spikes.
Yeah.
So much volatility. I don't know if you sent me this or if somebody else sent me this chart with the two biggest recessions, the Great Depression and the 2008 recession, and then the coronavirus on top of it.
Yeah.
And at the moment, it's the coronavirus drop in the stock market is mimicking the Great Depression almost very closely. And as you can see, it's got like a bear trap. Is that what it is? Where it's a bear bull. I forget which one.
You're trapping the people who think it's a bull market.
So it's going up right now, which is everyone's thinking, oh man, we're gonna have a V recovery. There's all this money to be made up on the upswing. But as you can see with the Great Depression, it went down hard after that and then continued kind of flat, but eventually down as well. There was a long little, rebound. But then if you look at 2008, I don't know that it had the same trap, but it definitely dive bombed and then continued to go down for, I don't know if this chart tells me the days, 486 days after the initial top of the market. It shows top to bottom here. But I don't know. I just keep thinking, all the stuff we're saying with the hospitals, America has not really seen that. And we don't really have friends and relatives who have been affected by this yet. And we keep thinking the quarantine is only going to be 2 weeks. We are about to hit our 2-week quarantine here in Puerto Rico. And any day now, we're waiting for the governor. She has not made that announcement yet. But we're waiting that we have another 2 weeks. You see countries around the world locking down, shutting down their borders for months now. Like it's like June 1st is what we're hearing some places. So I don't think Americans realize how crazy this is about to be, and I can't imagine that the market has this priced in. Maybe smart money does, and they've pulled out, but I feel like all these people that are trying to like buy the dip and like play these moves, I think
like us,
I know. I think we're going to be in for a rude awakening. It just feels like the news has to be worse. It feels like we really don't know what the unemployment is, even though we just saw a number, and we really don't know how deadly this virus is when it's now 4.5% mortality rate. And then there's other things too, like there was a debate with some articles about how easily can this virus spread. Somebody was saying that it looks like studies are coming out that are saying this thing can be in the air for 8 hours. That video that I had with the whiteboard was like my favorite video I've ever seen. It was so technical. And in that video, he said this thing can stay suspended for 3 hours. And that is the basic consensus. If you cough, it will be suspended in the air for 3 hours. The virus is so small compared to other viruses. But a lot of people are saying now there's suggestion that it can stay suspended for 8 hours. And some of our medical friends are saying you can't trust that news because if it was suspended in the air for 8 hours and it was more of an aerosol type of spread, then the R0 value would be way higher than 2. It might be 5 or 6. It could be 10. But we're seeing this spread a lot faster than anyone predicted. People are getting coronavirus without knowing where they got it. People who thought they were pretty quarantined are coming down with the virus now. So maybe the R0 value is much higher. We were talking about your family member that was a dental hygienist.
Mm-hmm.
She said she was worried about working in the dental practice.
Yeah.
And the American Dental Association, the ADA, they came out and said all your suction and all your high-speed drilling and everything like has the possibility to make that airborne. This is what I was arguing with my dad about, and finally they closed their dental practice. But I don't know. We don't totally know yet, and this thing could be more viral and more contagious than we even know at the moment. Speaking of that, I'll go into. Have you seen these posts about people being charged with acts of terrorism, like the kid who licked the gallons of ice cream?
I heard about that.
There was also a
few
boy
weeks
who
ago.
wiped. I talked about this in one of our first videos. The guy in the subway like licks his hand and then wipes it.
He did this because of the coronavirus?
Yeah, and there's arguments to say, is it an act of terrorism, which is kind of crazy to even say, but like, are you at fault for spreading the virus if that's what you're doing, if you did it before the World Health Organization called this a pandemic, or before a lot of this news came out? But just in the last couple of days, we've also had another boy licking sticks of deodorant, and then I saw a post that was like a woman intentionally coughed on all the groceries, and they threw out $35,000 worth of groceries, and now they're charging her with some kind of crime. And you're like...
I read this news article, yeah. I mean, I feel like that's ridiculous. People are coughing on their hands and then putting the bananas on the shelf or taking the bananas out of the truck and putting them on the shelf.
This is my fear with going to the grocery store is like...
The store's owner says it made him sick to his stomach to have to throw out the produce, especially when people are in need of resources. The store owners don't think the woman has the virus. They just didn't want to take chances. They say the district attorney's office is pursuing charges against whoever this woman is.
I want to almost not buy some of these groceries. My dad was going as far as saying, turn your oven up to 400 degrees, that should kill a virus, and then put anything you buy in there for, I don't know what the scientific number would be, but like 5 minutes, and just let it bake at 400 degrees. And I'm like, I'm not going to do that with a banana, Dad. I'm not going to do that with lettuce, you know?
Yeah.
But it makes you think, at what point are we going to start realizing that some of our food isn't safe? Because right now they're recommending you wipe down all the prepackaged boxes. I think our grocery stores have done an incredible job at making sure their employees are gloved and masked, and they're like wiping down the grocery stores at night. So I don't want to like instill fear in everybody, but it still does make you wonder when like people are just going and like looking for the produce that they want, and they've touched everything.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the answer is there, but I'm just seeing these stories, and it's making me feel like losing a little bit of faith in humanity when I see people just being blatant jerks. There's a guy who like got coughed on by a kid, I think in like, New York in the park, Central Park. Kid just went up to him and just coughed in his face as like a prank. And you're like, man, like, what is wrong with...
Yeah, it's probably just people who feel like it's an overreaction, and so they're just, they feel like it's funny. And, there's a very good chance, statistically speaking, that none of these people had the virus. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get it. It's just stupid pranks and stuff. But today was the first day that I have really seen Katie, my wife, start to freak out a little bit.
Yeah.
She has been working so hard recently on these projects, and she wrapped up a day or two ago. And so I guess in the last day or two, she started watching the news a little bit or something, or talking to her family members. I don't know. But this morning we went bike riding, like back on some trails away from people, and we went snorkeling in this beach away from people, and it was great. And then I came home and was like, I'm going to Burger King to get an Impossible Whopper. I'm going to make this an incredible day. And she was like, I don't think you should go get fast food anymore. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, you go to the grocery store. Like, why can I not go there? And she was like, well, we only go to the grocery store once every week or two, and you're going to get drive-through, a few times a week. It's just not worth the risk.
I would think that the drive-through potentially could be safer than walking into Walmart.
I have to imagine it is, although I would say it's still kind of creepy. I talked about this in another video. Seeing the people with the masks on and everything, even though the lady today did not have a mask on, but she had gloves, but she's taking my credit card and taking the last person's credit card and not changing the gloves. So
you know how many gloves you have to realistically go
exactly.
through?
It's not
so many.
Exactly. And so then I come home, and Katie is upset that I am like touching my phone after touching the bag from Burger King. And I'm like, how was I supposed to get the phone in the house? And she's like, give me the phone. She's bleaching the phone. She's going into my car and like bleaching the steering wheel.
Welcome to my world for the last 10 days.
Well, she's doing it.
I don't think Kristen's been this crazy, but yeah, it's like...
I was like, what are you doing? And she's like, I'm doing this to protect Patrick. He has an immune issue. Like, you're going to feel horrible when he gets it, and it's going to be your fault. And I was like,
maybe I'm like the bat.
What has gotten into you, Katie? Like, I've never seen her act like this.
I think what's happening is Americans are realizing how real the situation is, and we've heard, I don't want to say the rumors, like it's in our big chat groups, but the first case has been identified in Umacow, which is right outside our gate.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be long until the first case is identified in our neighborhood,
right.
You know? And I think that's just the reality that we all have to prepare. I mean, as you guys have watched us go through this process, it has been very far from us because we're just looking at other countries, and it's been very easy to say like, oh, what's going to happen? I'm curious to see if we start turning and having like more depression, and we're a little more scared, and things become a little bit more real. Not just for us, but for everyone that we're talking to, you know? Because I think the reality is Americans have not really taken this seriously, and we still view it as this like distant threat, you know? And we're still having people debating like whether or not our president has done a good job, and whether or not this is a hoax, and whether or not this is like the flu. But the reality is we are entering into the scariest part of this, the beginning of the scariest part of this. So I don't know. I was telling Kristen today, like, I would love to get through this whole thing not contracting it at all. Whereas your mentality is like, we're all going to get it eventually. And I feel like that's a very difference of opinion. I feel like in this house, we could realistically go for months.
Is that your plan?
And not
you want us
get
to be
it.
stuck in this house for months, potentially years?
I don't mind if everyone else is quarantined and locked up. If all of our neighborhood is like...
That can't happen for years.
Not for years, but like all we have to do is wait until the virus just stops being deadly.
How could we wait for that?
It could happen. I mean, this I don't know if this is being talked about, but like it literally could happen in the next month or two.
How?
It could mutate to where it's less, contagious and less deadly. Viruses mutate all the time, and we could just get to where like it warms up, enough people had it and got immunity, and suddenly the strain is like turned to a weaker strain, and it's better now. I mean, these things happen. The other side of it is it could be like the Spanish flu, and it mutates and gets stronger and comes back a second time and is worse.
Yeah.
But like we simply don't know. I think everyone right now is just saying we're either all going to get it and build this herd immunity, or we have to wait for the vaccine. But there is a middle ground there where the virus could just stop being as deadly.
I've never heard someone say that.
It happens. It mutates. And maybe it mutates in America and it starts to go down, but then we get reinfected by the strain that didn't mutate. Like these are pandemics we're talking about. Like it's a lot different than every other viral case that we've had before, but absolutely this thing could peter out, I mean, I think that's what a lot of people are debating right now is, will this slow down with just the warming of the weather? It does with the flu, but this isn't the flu. So we don't know yet how the virus is going to be affected by warmer weather. So I don't know. I think we're in a situation where we're just not around a lot of people. And if we can get our food in here safely, I think we could easily not catch it. I'm at the point now where I don't think I have it because tomorrow will be my 14th day being in this house away from everybody besides the four of us.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But, I'm talking to friends in New York who are in apartments and stuff, and they're like, I'm happy to be in New York because we have all the food and all the resources, but I live in an apartment where if I step out of my apartment, there are people coughing in the hallway and going up and down the elevators, and they're taking their cars and they're getting out of there. And it's like, man, you're doing exactly what everyone did in Wuhan. You're doing what everyone has done in any town that they don't want to be trapped in.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but luckily the friends I've been talking to they're making their escape after they've done their 14-day quarantine. So maybe that's a little safer.
Let's call this video, this will be the first one that's under 1 hour long. I'm happy because it's my day to edit.
Keep pushing it if you want to keep going.
No,
you
we're
don't
done.
want to keep making it. They still have some editing to do.
No. And if you guys would like to donate, we have a Patreon going on. 100% of the proceeds that we make during this insane time will go to people in need here in Puerto Rico. We are just assuming that all the federal aid and stuff will not be coming to Puerto Rico. And so anything we can do to help people down here is what we're going to be doing. And of course, we'll be donating our own money when the need arises. And currently, everything is for sale in fstoppers.com/store. You can figure out the sales there. And Photography 101 is 100% free, so you can head over there.
There's been a lot of people downloading that.
Yeah.
I logged in and saw the numbers, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want a free tutorial, head over there, check it out. We will see you tomorrow.